So I'm in my car recording this, and lately I've wondered if I've told the story, and if I can almost maybe wrap this whole show up. And I've also been thinking about the purpose of the podcast, the Ray's World, and my intentions in the beginning, and why I continued to record myself. And I think it's been a therapy for me. For one, it's been a way to talk about Rachel without interruptions and without feeling like I'm speaking to someone who's burdened by the sorrow or my story in general, because in the United States, grief is a burden to most people. I'm not saying I'm exempt from that. I grew up here too. I'm part of the culture as well, and I'm no better. I'm sure that I've been cold in the face of a grieving friend in the past. I'm sure I have, because you just don't know what it's like until it happens to you. But we live in a world of people who are grieving, and that's the truth. And I don't think that our society really is set up to adequately deal with grief. And I don't even know much about other cultures and how they deal with it, but the United States tends to ignore some of the life's biggest, most profound events, dynamics. The United States is so very much a capitalist society that we revolve around never stopping. We revolve around the wheels having to keep turning in order to continue to thrive in this society, in a capitalist society. So there isn't a whole lot of provision for grief. So, and if you are someone who wants to create something to allow to try to change the culture, it would be a monumental task, and it would have to be, in this country, it would have to be something that also it fits into like the capitalist mold. So it'd probably be a company or something, non-profit maybe. But I've thought about this podcast, and I've thought about why I felt so compelled to talk about Rachel. There's something that happens, and I don't know if it happens with every grieving person, but on top of all of the grieving things, all the textbook grief stuff, it is real. As much as you don't want to hear it, those steps, those stages, the things people go through, it's been studied, and it is real. I think everyone's grief is unique, and I don't think mine's any worse or any better than anyone else's. So, but I will say this: Ray and I did live in a set of circumstances that are fairly rare. Most couples, every couple, if you love someone and you found the love of your life, no matter what, at some point you will lose that person, or you will leave before they do. At some point in a long enough timeline, one of those two will have to live without the other, whether it's after 60 years together or 10 years together. But people who are diagnosed with terminal cancer, if you're a couple at our age being told that Rachel only had max 3 years, which she really only lived a year and a half, it does something to a person. It does something to the couple. It tests you. And we lived with the hourglass right next to our face. We lived in that world for a year and a half together. And in many ways, I feel blessed that I was able to say things to Rachel that a lot of people, when you lose your loved one, they're gone. Car accident, I can't imagine. I don't know what that's like, and I will never attempt to say that I understand that kind of grief, because I don't. The grief that I feel is, I feel all of the normal things that come along with grief, very standard stuff. I long for her, and Rachel, some people, you lose your loved one and maybe you weren't in a great place together, or maybe that wasn't the case for me. I had no doubts about Rachel. I'm not saying we were a perfect couple by any means. Not at all. Not even close to perfect. But I think we knew we loved each other. And I know that we knew that above all else. And we were told the worst possible news you could ever get. Rachel was going in and out of emergency rooms with this pain of hers, and it didn't cross my mind that it could be cancer. I didn't. At 33 years old, I just didn't. Wishful thinking, man. You don't want to think the worst. I think she had a suspicion. I think she knew. She had said it to me years and years before she ever was diagnosed, that she thinks she's going to get cancer, or thinks she has it. And she was right. She was usually right about everything when it came to listening to her gut. But, being told that news, it turns something on in your brain. Your level of awareness, the memories of that year and a half are so vivid to me and so meaningful. The moments were so meaningful. When you have that hourglass next to you and you know that it's dwindling, words become more meaningful. When you tell each other that you love each other before bed, you fucking mean it in a way that you could never imagine unless you're in the same circumstance, And the thing that the nagging thing about my grief is I feel like I have gone through something extremely profound and extremely spiritual, and not just spiritual like you went to a mountaintop and had an epiphany. I'm talking about a year and a half with this person, with Rachel, watching the way she dealt with being told she was going to die, having nothing. We had never had kids, we didn't buy a house, and we hadn't even gotten married at that point. We had moved into her father's. A lot of people think that we moved there because she was sick. That's not true. Rachel decided we need to save up and get our life together, get married and buy a house. We were engaged for a few years before she got sick, a couple years. And, we just couldn't afford our own wedding. We couldn't afford it. So as it got closer to us, her wanting to, set a date, we started to realize, what she wanted was a wedding that she thinks that we deserved, that our love deserved, and what she deserved, absolutely. And so it was hard. It's hard to plan that. There is no resources. With the business we were in, we didn't have a nest egg or anything, and we both had mountains of student loans we were dealing with. So I'm just trying to highlight what was going on, paint a picture, put some color to the image of when you're told this nightmare, your circumstances. have something to do with that. I'm going to continue this podcast, and I'll put a part 2 up. But yeah, the story I want to tell is watching what happened to Rachel, what happened to us after being told our worst nightmare. And the reason why it's so important for me to tell is because it's not what you would expect. That's why I'm living in such awe, because it brought out the best, really. It brought out the best in her. It brought out the best in at the time, it was the best in me, the best in us. It just stripped us down to like the essential. If there's anything that would ever test a couple's fortitude or whether they're meant for each other, it's something like this, man. And it brought us just so close, like beyond the love that I thought we even had up until that point. So I will continue, but I'm in the car and I don't want to get into an accident, so I'm going to stop here. I'll do a part 2.